some of the things that I did. I'll put it to you that way. Because there are sometimes when people tell me stories of things that I did and I'm like, no. But, I think that the worst, I always had more manic episodes than I did depressive episodes. But when I went into manias, I would do some crazy things. I would round a bunch of people up and take trips places. And like, I was lucky in the fact that I had the resources to be just looked at, I think, a little bit as you're eccentric as opposed to you're crazy. So I didn't experience probably quite the same stigma until I was on the street, But then when I was on the street, I found myself doing other things like figuring out where the best food could be found and how to get the most resources. Honestly, my time on the street was more like organizing other fellow homeless people into collecting resources and making sure we could survive a winter. I became very resourceful on the street, even though I was completely drunk or high most of the time, but I was able to do that. I can't point to one thing. I mean, you're asking a pointed question on what is a greatest horror. Nothing really comes to mind of something that like, oh my goodness, that is so horrible that I would be truly embarrassed. But I'm sure that somebody will comment to your podcast and say, he did this.
As much as I don't promote alcohol as such, I have this feeling that sometimes alcohol brings the best out of us in a way. It really shows who we are. And for example, as you've said that we're resourceful when it came to your time within the streets. So you mentioned that it didn't actually work out for you, and assuming that you didn't understand the concept around it in a way in terms of helping you. Why should I be part of it?
No, it's there's a couple things. Well, one of the biggest things that people that are using my program, the Sober Method, have commented on is that they don't like the large religious undertones that are in AA. And that didn't really bother me, but that is something that I often hear. The biggest thing that bothered me was the rear view mirror looking. So often we're just talking about things that happened in the past, and we can't change the past. My program's much more forward thinking. It's like, how are we being corrective and what corrective action are we taking for the future? And also constantly standing up and saying, I'm an alcoholic, and I didn't get my 5-year PIN because I absolutely refused to say that I was an alcoholic. I haven't been back to a meeting since then because I'm not an alcoholic. And I think that if you look at all other mental health treatment and every other thing that we do in this world, we're constantly doing positive affirmation. We are this. I am great. I am a winner. I'm going to win this race. That's how we talk. Except when we're talking about recovery from addiction, in which case it's like, I'm a drug addict. It's like, I'm Massimo, I'm an alcoholic. No, I don't feel like I'm an alcoholic anymore. I mean, I might be prone to do those things, but I am not going to identify as something I'm not. And we talk about this on every other mental health treatment there is out there, but in addiction, we don't. And so that's one of the main reasons I had to walk away from it, because it was dragging me down. It made me feel less than what I was capable of being.
In all honesty, I've never been in an AA meeting, but the way you actually describing it, it seems to me like you are kept on reminding you of your past, things that I would say you're ashamed of, things that you don't want to look at ever again. And it's something that as individuals, I feel like the system is used to the practices of the old times, and they are not willing to, in a way, modernize the actual system. And you spoke about Sober and how Sober method. How did it really affect your recovery? And when did you realize that this thing actually works?
Well, I realized that actually, I conceived the concept for what is the Sober Method at the end of 2016. So I've been sober at this point for 9 months, and I looked at everything. I was like, is this it? I'm sober, like there's got to be more to life. And that's when I decided that I really had to dig into myself and find a way to do a constant self-improvement process on myself. So I modeled the entire thing as if I am a machine, like a manufacturing plant. And it's basically the Deming cycle at the end of the day. Basically, you're in a continuous improvement process as a human being about your psyche and what you believe and building your confidence and your ability. What really drove this point home is that I noticed the stronger that my confidence level was about who I was and what I believed in and what I was capable of, the less I ever felt a need to lean into a substance, if that makes any sense. So if you walk into a room and you can just be yourself and not worry what anyone thinks about you, then you're confident. If you can't do that, then you're not actually 100% confident as a person. And very few people can do that. But if you can, you're not going to lean on any substance, because most people walk into social situations and they generally will lean into a drink, especially adults. I'm going to go to the bar and get a drink. That way I feel like I can interact with all of these people. And that's the slippery slope that I think alcohol becomes that gateway drug into other things as well, because it's that social lubricant that is so easy to come by. If you're a very shy person forced into a situation where you constantly have to interact socially, there's a good chance that you're going to become a pretty large drinker over time, because you're going to ultimately use this to get over that hump of your shyness. And because a lot of people who are shy are also not confident, that's kind of the underlying challenge. You can be shy and confident. Those people are a rare exception, but there's some phenomenal people out there that are that. But that's where it all kind of started. And so the sober method utilizes Stoic philosophy, in which you look at yourself holistically as like, mind, body, and soul. You've got to improve everything to be this whole person. And so asking yourself deep questions about yourself. How do you feel about things? And really being able to then confidently state those positions and be that person is how you then have that confidence to not need any substances. So that's kind of how the start of the program all came to happen.
So you mentioned Stoicism. It really adapts the Stoic philosophy, and it's something that helps from reading the likes of Marcus Aurelius.
Meditations is his reflective work. And I tell you, Meditations is fantastic, because if you look at it from the perspective that Marcus Aurelius, when he was writing this stuff down, you can see how vulnerable he was to himself in his writing. Here's the most powerful man on earth questioning his purpose in life. It's an amazing testament to, here's a guy who had everything, yet he was trying to improve himself. And I think if you step back and really think about it in that fashion, nobody should stand still and not trying to constantly improve their abilities and who they are as a person.
In terms of self-reflecting, as you said, self-reflecting of trying to know who you actually are, and is this purpose that you are into, is it worth it? That. So your program, the Sober Method, it really all about being logical when it comes to your recovery and trying to pinpoint things that you should do, things that you should actually avoid, because if you do this, the consequences are going to be this. And that's what I love actually about Stoicism. It really tells you, if you will do this, eventually the consequences are these ones, and you will reap what you sow. One of the better I love about. I just want to say thank you so much for